Having gone through quite a lot of changes in recent years, Naga has gone from a carry to a support and back to carrying on multiple occasions. Although with her current iteration, and with her promising showcase at this year's International, there's no doubt that as far as prime, top tier carries are concerned, Naga is one of the contenders leading that pack. So let's take a dive into how to skill, build, and generally play Naga Siren as a position 1 hard carry in this patch. Naga is the kind of hero that I look at as being part of the triangle heroes that use illusions at all times during gameplay, with the other two being Phantom Lancer and Terrorblade if we exclude Chaos Knight from this. Between the three of them, however, what truly makes Naga unique conceptually as a hero is that with the recent changes she's received over the course of the last few patches, she's gone from being somewhat unreliable because a lot of RNG was associated with her kid, to being incredibly reliable by comparison. This change happened in the form of Valve changing how her Riptide ability functions. Whereas before it had a set chance of proccing, causing all illusions to splash, it now is guaranteed to activate after every 6 hit from both your attacks and that of your illusions. As you can imagine, this quickly makes it so Naga can end up casting Riptide with insanely high speed. It's this speed that has turned her into a farming monster and a player killing powerhouse. No longer is her aggression based on a set chance of maybe you'll get a kill, but rather a constant, powerful 6-hit wonder doing loads of damage and removing armor. Due to how Naga now functions, it is of utmost importance that anyone interested in picking her up and becoming good at her becomes abundantly comfortable with controlling all of her illusions, since it's through their strikes and placement that Naga peaks as a hero. By constantly splitting herself, putting her illusions everywhere and having them power up through items and levels, Naga reaches some nasty power levels that can lay complete waste to people even from a distance where she's not even actively participating. She currently holds the potential for one of the heroes that can accumulate farm the fastest in the entire game, being able to go up against other gold producing heroes such as Alchemist or Doom. Naga's strong suit therefore lies in how much damage she can do through these illusions of hers, combined with how quickly she can accumulate a lead compared to the average carry, letting her take over the game and overpower anyone standing in her way. Considering that your top priority when playing Naga is to generate as much farm as quickly as possible, it becomes pretty obvious that the best thing one can do is to increase her skills that allows her to farm. That would be the case before they powered up her ensnare ability. In many older patches, it was in your best interest to forego this ability entirely due to how clumsy on lane it was, and how little of a benefit it gave Naga as a whole, so players would prioritize increasing their farm potential and get it later on. Given the buff it received though, there is now generally 2 builds in particular that are worth mentioning for Naga, and of course some exceptions related to them. Let's start off with the first one, which doesn't include her ensnare. Your primary objective is to put as many levels into your mirror image illusions as quickly as you're able, getting it to level 4 by level 7. Not a single point is placed in her ensnare ability, with the rest of the points being put into Riptide to increase the amount of damage and minus armor herself and her illusion dish out. Her ultimate is often skipped, since you rarely find yourself in need of it if your placement and movement on her are stable. You can opt in for it whenever you desire however, usually at level 8 to 9. This build is what I call the greedy build for Naga. It's rather self-centered, but it is the build that will push your farm forward the most. Generally speaking, if you intend to go jungle very early, or if you have a lane that's inhospitable and you can't land a kill with an ensnare, this is the build to go for. Opting out of net just means our illusions will be powered up faster, and as soon as you're level 7 with this build, you'll have illusions with no downtime, farming creeps, reliably doing 50 damage every 6 hit, plus giving minus 6 armor in the process. Her second build is pretty much the same, but with one key difference attached to it. You still want to get your illusions maxed out ASAP, since it's the very reason we're playing Naga in the first place. By level 3, you'll henceforth want to have 2 points in your illusions and 1 in Riptide. Level 4 is where this build deviates from the first one, since this is where we'll be acquiring her net ability. Having ensnare available to us means that we can now reliably set up a potential kill depending on our lane partner. An enemy support that's trying to pull can very quickly be entangled up in her ensnare, only to die due to being rooted by her, with her ally following up. The build then proceeds just like the greedy build, in the same fashion. The net build on her, on average anyway, I find superior in pops when it is applicable. If you're up against opponents that you know you're capable of killing and your position 5 has the tools necessary to assist you, it'll put the enemy on the back foot since you're now proving to them that you can threaten a kill if they're out of position. On the other hand, if you have a support that's not being very engaging in lane, or something like a warlock that doesn't offer much in terms of damage, but rather keeping you safe and healed, skilling net and getting kills with it gets increasingly unlikely. Not much needs to be mentioned about her talents. The most common ones, regardless of her build, goes Riptide at level 10, mirror damage at 15, more illusions at 20, and 25 Riptide armor or illusion cooldown are both viable. Much like any carry out there, it's important to know what are the preferred moves to make as far as laning is concerned, both in terms of offense and defense. In Naga's case, she's predominantly a defensive hero in laning for the first few levels. You can fling your illusions at enemies once you have Riptide, but doing this can result in shoving the lane, which you may not want to do. At level 4, assuming you go for the Ensnare build, this is where her dynamic can change quite a bit. Suddenly, you're able to root someone to the ground and completely surround them with illusions before applying an insane amount of damage to the target. Great care needs to be taken when laning with her though, since it's not uncommon you'll find yourself in a scenario where the enemy hero has tools to deal with your illusions. From Legion Commander to Bristle to Axe to Sanking, there are quite a lot of formidable offlaners that can be seriously annoying for Naga's laning stage. And if your illusions are killed off, you're not remotely a threat in their downtime. The laning for Naga from this point often becomes a balancing act. At around level 5, you start to be able to take jungle camps extremely fast for an early game hard carry. This allows you a lot of options as far as laning is concerned. If you're winning your lane, then you need to get most of the XP from lane with the real Naga. If the creep wave are towards the enemy tower and can pose a danger to you if you try to kill them, you can easily head into jungle and farm instead. The other way around, if you're losing your lane, by far the safest method is to start splitting up and farming jungle as fast as you're able. Eventually, the enemy will push their creep wave back towards your tower, where you can teleport or walk back to and claim before going back to farming jungle. Really, you want to constantly be ping-ponging yourself and your illusions between jungle creep camps and lane creeps, and optimize your farm as much as you're able. Once you're level 7, you don't really care about how much farm the enemy offlaner gets anymore, but rather how quickly you can fill your pockets, come online and dominate the game. With the many changes Naga has received conceptually as a hero, so too did the way we built her change along the way. We've gone from her being a Radiant Solution carry to a Diffusal Blade killing machine, to being a precursor to the much despised OD Meteor Hammer build, to now being an aggressive split farmer with killing items. Luckily, the build up to Naga is generally very static once you have the first few items in place. Players usually opt to go for an early race ban to give her a bit of last-hitting prowess, as well as applying an extra oomph to her illusions. This is then paired up with her boots of choice, which of this patch, and given how the illusions play around Riptide, comes in the form of shreds. Immediately then, Yasha is then rushed on Naga for what it gives her in order to be built into a Manta style as fast as possible. The reasoning for Manta is quite simple. The illusions spawned from Manta might not last as long as Naga's built-in illusions, but they count towards her Riptide activating, meaning you can now farm and apply damage even faster. Next up is the item that's actually defining the new style of Naga, and it comes in the form of Orchid. Orchid gives Naga some much needed mana regeneration for one thing, but it also allows her a stupidly good way of killing enemy cores and supports due to how it plays around her net. Last up is Heart, which is applied onto Naga just to make herself and her illusions stupidly tanky. With Heart and the other items present on her, you'll be a crazy strong powerhouse, and it forms the foundation of how we build her in this patch. Following these items, you're free to go for most other carry items in the game for your remaining slots. Aghanim Scepter is very potent for her due to her ensnare ability suddenly penetrating magic immune targets. Skadi is an overall around amazing item due to just how many stats it gives her and her illusions. Butterfly gives illusions and yourself evasion and an unparalleled amount of damage from right clicks. Bloodthorn is a very natural upgrade at this stage too, due to you already being in position of an Orchid. And lastly, Scythe of Vice actually pairs up insanely well with Naga's kit. Between netting people, silencing them, sleeping them with her song, you can now also hex them, leaving you with an ample opportunity in how you want to kill your enemies. For the last part of this guide, let's talk about how to control Naga, or rather, how I would recommend you control her illusions. Much like her skill build, I feel like there's generally two ways of controlling her, with the first one being how I personally set up my group for Naga, and the second one being a more new age approach I'm applying with the newfound tech in recent years. For starters, you need to have a control group for each illusion. Yes, every single illusion needs to have its separate keybind, since you need to be able to split them between lanes and camps as soon as you split them. My order for this, if we go from left to right on the keyboard, is as follows. 1 is Naga Siren, 3 is all of Naga's illusions, 4 is Naga Siren and her illusions. 5, 6, and 7 are all separate illusions, with 8 being added onto her once she gets +1 illusion skill at 20. Given that human fingers can only stretch so far on a keyboard, I've then assigned the 2 Manta illusions to scroll up and scroll down on my mouse. So whenever I Manta split Naga, I can then use my mouse wheel and A-click command to send them where I want them. This is my initial control scheme for her, and has been for many years. And while it works for me, bear in mind that we all have various ways we like to control the game. As long as you're comfortable and can use your illusions fast, that is your primary objective. Which brings me to the new and improved version of controlling Naga. This one comes in the form of a relatively recent change made to Dota as a whole. Valve not too long ago changed some variables in the game, which allows you to tap between units separately in the game itself. This means that you can select all units you have in the game and tap between them separately and control just one entity at a time, which is fantastic for a hero like Naga. In order to do this, you need to put in the command Dota selection group false into the game's console. I put the command itself in the description of this video in case you are interested in playing this way with her. What this means then is that instead of using separate keybinds for Naga, you can then simply press your unit cycle button, which in my case is caps lock, to toggle between illusions and send them on their way. This method of controlling Naga is extremely potent when learned and controlled right, since the game memorizes what units you spawned the most recently, and lets you control them. i.e., if you split your illusions, but then manta afterwards, it'll select your manta illusions first. With my initial build being illusion split, 5 attack command, 6 attack command, 7 attack command on the map to send the 3 Nagas somewhere, the new way of playing Naga instead becomes illusion split tap attack command, tap attack command, tap attack command. This means you can much faster split Naga's illusions without figuratively splitting your hand all over the keyboard. Ultimately, how you want to control Naga's illusions and how well you do it completely determines how well you can play the hero in general. It's therefore important that, whichever way you end up wanting to play her, that you become comfortable with it. My advice to you is, if you're being serious about really getting good at Naga, is to learn the new way of playing with her and get comfortable with it. And much like quick cast, find out how quickly you're able to issue commands and have your illusions go everywhere. That's Naga Siren for you. Making a guide for Naga wasn't exactly easy, and I feel like trying to condense a hero so deep and intricate as Naga Siren into a short video is truly a difficult thing to do. What are your thoughts? Do you like the way that Naga currently plays? Do you have any way you like to control Naga Siren? I'd love to hear if you have some inventive ways on how to juggle Naga's illusion micro. As always, you can catch me live at twitch.tv/fabkubashi from Monday to Friday with live Dota 2 gameplay. Get out there, split up those illusions and wreak havoc on the enemy. Learn to control the current version of Naga and gain gold and MMR alike.